Alright, I said I was going to look at a simple game here. Something I can install, play, and delete before moving on to the next one. I'm clogging up this PC way too much as it is. Shit. I never considered myself a war game buff. Sure, maybe I enjoyed the first Call of Duty Modern Warfare game, but despite me being in the Marines for 5 years, the most dangerous piece of equipment ever in my direct control was an industrial sewing machine. That and maybe those emergency flares. And the Mark 19 belt-fed automatic grenade launcher. So I really did not expect to like this. I heard a lot about this game and its apparent popularity in Europe, but not once did I think I would ever get this into the game. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at World of Tanks. Published and developed by Wargaming.net, World of Tanks is a realistic World War II-era arena combat game unsurprisingly centered around tank warfare. Tanks meet at opposing ends of a large field and attempt to wipe out the opposing force or capture their base. Yeah, normally I'd state that in gameplay, but the game doesn't have a story at all. It's just actual historical tanks from various countries meeting in battle. What World of Tanks does do is lend itself to the ever-growing list of online games possessing acronyms that sound like someone talking in tech speak. Since I have nothing more to say than that for now, let's begin. This game takes very realistic tones, unsurprisingly. The tanks and environments look great, even for medium graphics settings, which the game seems to default to regardless of your computer speed. Boosting them to higher graphics seems to give you better textures and add more environmental details, but I never found it necessary. I'm not a history buff, but I can honestly say this game does its best to recreate the looks of the tanks from the era. There's even subtle touches on some of the tanks, like shovels mounted on the backs of some tanks and others with repair tools mounted onto their backs. It's a very nice touch that might go unnoticed by a lot of people. Environments have a certain amount of destructibility to them, with many trees and lampposts being able to be run down by your tank. Larger and speedier tanks can even take out entire houses, and you can accomplish the same with artillery shells. However, missed spots often end up as nothing more than a black burnt spot on the ground, and your tank looks completely unaffected by incoming fire up until it's been destroyed. One odd choice that bugs me a bit is the fact that some tanks have open-top turrets, or even just regular-looking seating. The issue I have with that is that there's no actual people driving in them, making these tanks look like they're operating entirely on their own.
The tank is driving itself, John. The tank is driving itself!
Have I really reached the point where I'm starting to steal other people's jokes? Granted, I don't think people need to be added there, and it might end up looking goofy to see them there, and potentially gory for a T-rated game, but it's still unintentionally funny to see a certain tank driving around with absolutely nobody sitting in the driver or turret seats. I have had the odd crash issue here and there, usually right after the match loading screen, but luckily if you log back into the game within 2 minutes, you're allowed back into the match with no issue. Music in this game is surprisingly catchy. It's not played in any overblown manner and pops up only on occasion, usually featured before and after each match. But when it does pop up during matches, it's a pretty good driving force and helps boost the intensity of some matches. Mostly it jumps between military-style marches and band music, like drums and trumpets, but interlaced with occasional guitar rock and metallic industrial beats. It does tend to play for a short while though, so expect to hear a lot of the same tracks over and over again. It might end up getting repetitive to some. To back up the realistic tone of the graphics, the sound also does its best to recreate realism. You'll hear loud explosions of your guns as well as incoming fire. The roars and rumbles of each tank's engines is distinctive between tanks, another nice subtle touch to realism that might go unnoticed by some who play this game. In addition to the myriad of explosions, ricochets, and other standard sounds of battle, you'll hear voice clips of your tank crew. Regardless of your country of origin, all the tank drivers will have the exact same language and voice, and to be honest, some of the voice work is spotty and some lines sound a bit off. They also become really repetitive when you hear, "Penetration! We didn't even scratch them!" or "We lost the target!" If you don't chuckle by the almost odd and fey delivery of the line, "The target has moved away!" you might not really be playing with the sound on. I also find it baffling that clips like, "Where'd they go?" play by default when you're locked onto a target that someone else just killed, while you were still looking at them. It's hardly a deal breaker, but it's something to consider when adjusting your sound options. When registering for the game on the site, you can choose which country server you want to play on. While it usually defaults to where you're from, keep in mind if all your friends play on the European server or the American server and you're defaulted to the other server, you'll have to make sure to switch it or create another account on that other server. This game doesn't mess around. The minute you've registered for wargaming.net and logged into the game, you're immediately taken to the garage. Here's where you can inspect all the tanks you currently own, as well as see most of the features within it. This game has no training or tutorial mode for beginners, so your choices are just to play the game and hope you grasp the concept, or listen to me explain how it works. That is why you're watching this show after all, right? When starting out, your garage is stocked with 4 Tier 1 tanks. Each tank is from a different country's military, in this case, USA, Germany, France, and the Soviet Union. While each tank has a strength or weakness, such as the American T1 Cunningham being the fastest of the 4, or the French Renault FT having highest defense, they all start out pretty much worthless. There's a really good chance you're going to get destroyed on your first outing. A major plus to Tier 1 tanks is that you don't have to pay for repairs when they're damaged or destroyed. All you have to do is replenish any ammo you've used during the battle. Once you start playing, you'll gain experience and credits towards upgrading that tank, as well as branching out into different types of tanks, but I'll get all into that later. First off, to start a match, press the Battle button on the top of the screen to be sent into a random battle match. There's no way to choose your favorite map or pick the kind of match you'll be sent in, but at least your Tier 1 tank will be matched mostly with Tier 1s, and occasionally Tier 2s. In the interface, you'll notice a few things, and these are the most important things you'll need to get used to. In the bottom left corner is your status screen, showing how much damage your tank can take, as well as each individual part. The bar on the top is your HP, and the icons that border the tank represent a different part of the tank, such as tank treads, engines, gun, or the turret. If one of these items turn orange, it's been damaged and will affect your overall tank performance. A damaged tread will slow you down or even stop you. A damaged engine may stop you or catch fire, while a damaged gun or turret can affect your aiming speed and firing rate, sometimes stopping you from aiming or firing at all. Above that is the chat block where you can press enter to talk to your teammates or control enter to talk to everyone on the map. On the bottom right is the mini-map, which is much more useful than you'd think in an arena combat game. If you're playing in a platoon with someone else, they'll be represented by an orange icon. You can ping the map in any sector by clicking on a portion of it, but since the mouse controls the camera and turret, you'll have to hold control to gain use of the mouse cursor again. Each icon represents a type of tank, too. A solid diamond is a light tank, a diamond with 1 stripe is a medium tank, and a diamond with 2 stripes is a heavy tank. An upside-down triangle is a tank destroyer, and a square is an artillery unit or SPG. I'll explain more about tank types later, as you won't come across anything but lights and mediums as a Tier 1 tank. The overall goal of each match is to either take out all the tanks on the opposing side, or reach and capture the enemy base by keeping your tank within a small circle around the opposing base's flag for a certain period of time. Most people seem to prefer taking out all the opposing tanks, but if you have the opportunity to cap, do so. Taking fire while you're attempting to cap a base will cause the counter to reset to 0 on that specific tank, so it's important to have at least a few people around, or at the very least, just not get shot. Now, the controls in this game take a bit of getting used to, so feel free to drive around the starting point to get a feel for how they work, because your tank controls like a tank. Hold W to move your tank forward, and press S to move backward. You can also press R to move forward automatically at quarter, half, or full speed, and press F to do the same in reverse. That seem backwards to anyone else? Use A and D to pivot left and right and steer your tank. You can move the primary targeting reticle to anywhere you'd like with the mouse, but you'll have to wait for your turret to catch up if you want to fire a shot. Keep in mind there are directions your tank will not be able to fire in, such as straight downward or very high upward, but it depends more on the tank and the gun or turret you have equipped. To fire, press the left mouse button, or to have your turret auto-target an enemy, right-click when you have your crosshair over a target. To disable auto-targeting on a tank you have targeted, press E. Pressing shift or zooming in with the mouse wheel fully will put you into sniper mode, where you have a down-the-scope view of the field, allowing for much more precise shots. A few other keys I want to mention are the V key, which removes the interface when pressed, the M key, which toggles the minimap, and the C key, which reloads your tank's ammo if you have a gun that can shoot more than one shot at a time. If your tank has multiple shell types and you've equipped more than one, you can switch between those shell types by pressing 1, 2, or 3 when applicable. Just be aware this will force a reload, so don't try it mid-attack. To manually target a tank, or at least set one up for auto-targeting, point your target reticle over the tank you want to fire on. If it's an enemy tank, it will highlight in red. If it's friendly, it will highlight in green. Friendly fire is entirely possible in this game, and you're penalized pretty heavily for damaging or destroying a fellow teammate, receiving lost experience, credits, and a negative score, so make sure you're firing upon the enemy and not just shooting any tank you come across. When you target the enemy tank, once your turret catches up, you'll notice your crosshair will turn either red or green. If the crosshair is green, you'll have a good chance to cause damage to the enemy, but if the crosshair is red, there's little to no chance of success in causing damage with your shot. You'll also notice a green circle around your crosshair that gets smaller the longer your turret is focused in one spot. This is the area of dispersion your shot will have, so the smaller the circle you have around the enemy tank, the more likely you are to hit that tank. An interesting thing about the game is some guns cannot penetrate certain tanks' armor, but you're not completely shut out. If you move to target a certain area of the tank, like its tread, you'll still have the potential to cripple the tank and make it easier for others to take it out. Keep in mind you may be driving a tank, but you're not even close to invincible. If you go into this game playing it like Halo or Call of Duty, you're going down fast. Then you'll be stuck watching your smoldering heap of metal, wondering what went wrong, and asking people to heal you. I guess this would be a good time to mention this. Match death is permanent. Once you're out, you are out, and you get to do one of three things. Either watch your tank burn, right-click and jump around allied tanks that haven't been destroyed, or exit the match entirely. If you choose to exit the match after defeat, you will not be able to use that tank again until that match is over. Luckily, you can switch to any tank you have in reserve, and whether your team wins or loses the match, you'll immediately receive all the experience and credits when it's over. In order to stay alive in this game, you need to realize that teamwork and strategy is vital. Know the role of your tank and what it can and can't do. Rushing an open field will almost always get you killed, and don't worry too much about trying to outgun your teammates. Sure, it's disheartening to see a tank you've been working to get destroyed taken out at the last second by another teammate, but keep in mind, the tank is still destroyed. You may have to adjust your strategy at a moment's notice as well, as you may have to move out of a comfortable sniping position if you're spotted and head to find better cover, or face your attacker head on. This game even allows for ramming your tank into the enemy tank as a viable option of attack. The gameplay and strategies may even depend on what map you're playing on, or even which base you spawn at. The maps are not perfectly even, and some sides have a distinct advantage over the other, forcing a second side to take a different approach. The best example of this is Malinavka, one of the earliest maps you'll see. Base 1 is nestled nicely in a flat plain, barricaded and reinforced by several hollowed-out buildings for cover, while Base 2 is set unprotected in front of a wide-open field. Game logic might dictate you just head right down the field to the first base, but doing so will get you blown to shit by all the well-protected tanks on the other side. So Base 2 is forced to flank Base 1 from the sides, either through the village on one side or around the cover of the forest on the other side. It adds a great amount of depth to something so deceptively simple. The sight of 1 to 3 new players rushing the field in their T1 Cunninghams only to be shot to shit by all the other people waiting on the other side is a sight that I will never get tired of laughing at. One thing I want to touch on is the unfortunate random chances still assigned to the game. In an almost RPG-like way, if your bullets, on paper, do not have enough power to damage a tank's armor, you will not damage that tank without aiming for its vitals. There's also other hidden factors as well, such as firing on a tank with more angled edges will be more likely to cause ricochets, even if your shells are more than enough to damage it. You might get frustrated when you unload shell after shell into a tank to little effect, only to be taken out by a few shots. Another RPG-like factor in this game is the detection method. On screen, you'll be able to physically see the tanks you're firing on. This is for many reasons, but the first and foremost is that they were spotted on your radar, either by you or an ally. If you can see the enemy on your minimap, you can target them, regardless of how far away they are. However, if the tank that has radio contact with the enemy is killed or moves away, there's a chance the tank you're looking directly at will vanish right before your eyes. Don't fret though, as sometimes you can still fire a shot into where you last spotted them to damage them further, or even deliver the final blow. This does have two unfortunate implications. The first being that more knowledgeable players may fire randomly into a popular map spot to see if they can get a lucky shot off, and the second being that if the enemy has a better radio or sight than you do, they can bombard you with shells without you ever being able to see where they're coming from. Now, of course, you're not going to want to stick with your crappy Tier 1 tanks forever. You'll want something new. Well, there's ways to go about doing this. Note I kept mentioning experience gain. Each match you fight in, win or lose, you'll gain experience on that particular tank. When you click the Research button on your garage, you can see an RPG-like skill tree where you can use your experience to unlock more weapons, equipment, and even the next tier of your tank. However, just because you unlock them doesn't mean you have them yet. Once you research an upgrade, you'll still need to purchase it with credits, which are also earned in battles. Once purchased, it'll be automatically equipped onto the tank, but keep in mind some pieces can't be equipped without others. When purchasing new guns, you may need to buy a whole new set of ammo for it. There's a good chance you'll have the next rank of your wanted tank researched far before you'll be able to afford it. There's a bonus to sticking with one tank and researching it though, in that you can gain elite status on the tank by researching every available upgrade. Doing so will allow you to boost crew training, which will allow your tank crew to perform better, and later gain bonuses to things like repairing broken components when damaged. Alternatively, you can keep storing experience on that tank you can convert into free experience. Free experience is a small percentage of XP you can use to upgrade any tank you own, and it's often useful for rounding out that last bit of XP needed to research that new tank or gun you might want. You'll also need gold to convert free XP, so I'll get into that when I cover the cash shop. What's nice about this game is that you're rewarded with more credits and experience for more than just killing enemies. You can gain bonuses just for damaging an enemy tank or being the first to discover them on the map. This is especially useful for lower tier tanks or scouting tanks that won't be able to do much damage or hold their own against bigger tanks. If you spend your time camping, you're not going to get near as many chances for bonuses as if you're more forward in your role, so it's nice the game rewards people for actually doing well. Okay, it's a bit odd of me to hold off on this for as long as I have, but let's finally go over the tank types that I spoke about in the beginning. Standard tank types come in light, medium, and heavy. A light tank is usually a low-armored, speedy tank used for scouting. Their purpose is to sneak around the map looking to expose the positions of enemy tanks or locate and take out dangerous targets like artillery units or tank destroyers. A medium tank is the middle-of-the-road tank. Decent armor, decent power, and speed. These are usually best used as escorts for larger tanks as they do well in packs. Then of course there's the heavy tanks. These are your basic slow-moving bruisers with very high defense. In other words, tanks. Two specialty tank types are the tank destroyers, which are basically cannons with engines. They put out high damage, usually at great distance, but at the sacrifice of being able to target without turning their entire tank frame. A fast tank can easily circle behind one to destroy it, but if it gets so much as a single shot in, their targets are as good as dead. The other specialty tank is the artillery unit, also called the SPG. This is a purely sit-still, hide in a bush and lob massive explosive shots far into the distance. They also act as snipers, bringing in high-arcing explosions from above. An SPG plays completely different from normal tanks, as pressing shift or zooming in gives an above-the-field view of the map, where you can choose to fire on your target from above. If threatened, they can revert back to a tank destroyer mode by firing forward, but have even less range of motion at a much slower firing rate. Failing to protect your artilleries can easily mean the difference between victory or defeat. Both SPGs and tank destroyers are ranked higher than their supposed tiers, so be aware if you decide to go that route. You might be intimidated to see you're suddenly thrust into a Tier 4 or 5 match as a Tier 2. Regular Tier 2 tanks don't have this to worry about. While you only get one free slot, you can sell off your old tanks anytime you wish to make room for a new one. It's also a good practice to gain that boost in credits to be able to afford the next tier tank. It's also good to know that buying back a Tier 1 tank will cost you nothing in case you wish to head down a different tank path. As you can imagine, it's harder to upgrade the higher tier tank you get, and you'll feel like you've hit a brick wall once you get up to Tier 4. Experience required will go up immensely, and the credits required to purchase equipment as well. Although you're in quite a bit more credits and XP in higher tier matches, it's hardly as fast of an upgrade as previous tiers. Expect to grind out a lot of matches before being able to upgrade. The matchmaker is rather baffling too. While I guess it makes sense to automatically upgrade the specialty tanks to a higher tier, once you reach Tier 4 with any kind of tank, there's a chance you'll be tossed into Tier 7, 8, or 9 matches. Feeling useless doesn't even begin to describe it. I suggest keeping a good Tier 2 or Tier 3 tank on hand, just to be matched a little bit better, or at least have a place to grind credits while still being a bit more evenly matched. There's talk of the match system being balanced in later patches. Let us hope. Considering all you'll be doing is interacting with others, this game's community is a pretty integral part. Luckily it's a mixed bag, but generally quiet. People don't seem too chatty in matches, and for good reason, but you can believe that people who get destroyed will be a lot more talkative. There's also a ton of map clickers who seem to think you'll only pay attention to them if they ping the same part of the map at least a dozen times. Prepare to say, yes, we get it, quite a bit. There's also a good balance of decent and helpful players among the jerks. I've seen a lot less OMG you suck than I've seen good luck or nice job. Little hint though, anyone suggest you rush the field when the match starts is probably trolling you, or they're stupid. You can also remove the chat filter in the options screen if you want to see just how colorful the language can get. There's a few terms in this game you'll see a lot of, so get used to them. If someone mentions the arty, such as take out arty or protect arty, they're talking about the artillery units. If someone asks you to scout, they want you to move ahead into the field to try to detect enemy tanks. Keep in mind there are only a few tanks where this is a viable option. Also keep in mind this will usually end up with your scout getting blown up. Otherwise, you'll see a typical shorthand insincere well wishes of congratulations in the form of GLHF, for good luck have fun, and the infamous GG used for good game, available in both sincere and taunting ironic forms. There is really nothing more satisfying than having the other team preemptively calling out GG because they're ahead in tank kills, only to have me sneak around and steal the base from underneath them. Since the, well, tank controls are a bit odd to get used to, you'll probably accidentally run into people on occasion. and be aware they'll do the same to you. Remember how I said ramming was a viable option for damage and that friendly fire is entirely possible? Yeah, you could lose a tank tread before you even leave the base because an M2MT couldn't remember how steering works. Sometimes it's best to wait until everyone has moved into position before trying to move your tank, just to be on the safe side. Anyone that kills a friendly tank will receive a negative score, and it takes a few tank kills just to climb back to 0. The game does not take friendly fire well, and will even deduct credits from your match total, or even pool of credits just to pay back the damage you caused to another player. It's pretty nice that if you're the victim of a friendly attack, you'll receive the money as a bonus though. If you want to get a few friends together to play, you're a bit SOL. You can only invite one friend into a platoon. While there is a way to invite 2 friends into a platoon, you need to be a premium member to do so, and I'll get more into those benefits in the cash shop. There's a slight chance you can end up in the same match with your friends if you all manage to press the battle button at the same time, but it's not 100% guaranteed. There is a guild-like system called tank companies, where larger groups of people can join in a massive tank company, even joining entire battles as one tank company, but many restrictions apply. While it's free to join a tank company, if you wish to form your own, you'll again need a premium account. Currently there's a mode similar to the board game Risk called Clan Battle, where a tank company can join in massive wars to overtake Europe territory by territory. There's some really complex systems in place here, and I encourage anyone interested to check them out, but for me who'd rather play the game as a casual game, I've been told clan wars can get pretty serious and stressful. So if I mentioned the premium account enough in this, time to move on, I guess. Okay, in a purely technical sense, there is only one thing you can buy in this game: gold. Unlike the simple cash shop points of other MMO games, gold has a ton of different uses beyond merely being the points required to get formerly unobtainable shinies. Gold is a bit of an odd pricing system, another case of Microsoft Points syndrome, with the lowest amount you can buy being $12.50 for $6.95, and the most being $25,000 for $99.95. The thing is, gold is used for everything. Yes, even buying the premium account. You'll be surprised just how far gold can go in this game. One of the most basic uses is to convert it into credits. Gold goes pretty far in this regard, and you'll earn 10 to 20 matches worth of credits by converting as little as 20 or 30 gold. 1 gold equals 400 credits. Remember how I mentioned that an elite tank can continue to earn experience that can be converted to free experience? Well, gold is how you do it. When a vehicle is fully researched to elite status, any experience left over is wasted unless you convert it at the rate of 25 experience for 1 gold. This might not seem like the best bargain, and it's a lot more costly than buying credits, but it's useful if you aren't doing so well with one kind of tier tank, but have a favorite or two in reserve that have a bunch of wasted experience stored on them. Experience is much harder to come by in this game. There's a few cosmetic options too, such as the ability to give your tank a coat of camouflage paint. These cost more depending on what tank you're painting and whether you want to paint it permanently or for a few weeks or days. Most uselessly though is that you have the ability to choose a different name and face for your tank crew members. Names and faces are selected from a preset group, so my dream of having a tank commander named Leroy Jenkins was immediately shattered. Also, it's seriously not worth the 50 gold to do it. There are premium tanks you can purchase with large amounts of gold. While these tanks will immediately boost you to a higher tier, they are not upgradable. These tanks switch out constantly in the shop, with some being only available for a short amount of time. You can only choose to buy a certain type of shell in the shop, referred to among the community as gold shells. They can only be purchased with actual gold, and while extremely powerful, once you get the idea in your head that you're firing actual money at people, you might not be as inclined to purchase them. It usually costs around 200 gold to completely stock a tank with gold shells. In addition to gold shells, you can purchase one-time use consumables that perform things like immediate tank repairs when a component is damaged or the tank catches fire. You can also use gold to boost the training level of your tank crew to an immediate 100%. The higher the crew level, the better the tank will perform overall, and you can learn alternate skills once a crew member reaches 100%. With premium tanks, gold shells, consumables, and crew boosting all made possible by gold, you might think this game has a pay-to-win aspect. Trust me when I say that strategy and teamwork play much further into this game than just having the shiniest tanks and ammo. Okay, finally I'll explain premium accounts. In order to purchase a premium account, you'll need to click Buy Premium and spend a portion of your gold. You can choose in increments as small as a day or as large as a year, for various amounts. You save more in the long run by buying larger amounts of premium at once, but that counter runs down constantly whether you're playing or not. At least it doesn't auto-renew. With a premium account, you can earn 50% more XP and credits per battle, and can create a platoon of 3 people instead of just 2, as well as start your own tank company. As a cosmetic bonus, your garage is changed to be a clean, higher quality environment as long as your premium account is active. My best recommendation for gold is to purchase more tank slots. This way you can explore the various tank options across the countries without having to get rid of your older ones. Even with the focus on gold, I will say this company comes off as fairly generous, very often just giving away tanks and premium time with their special codes they'll occasionally list on their site. A recent Valentine's Day edition granted the Valentine tank, a Tier 4 heavily armored light tank, and the New Year's promotion granted access to the Tetrarch, a Russian Tier 2 tank that, while the armor is practically papier-mâché, can move really fast and come stock with Tier 4 guns. Tetrarchs are OP as shit. I'm really bad at picking a game I think will be simple and easy to drop, aren't I? This is one of the most deceptively complex and addictive games I've played. If you're a fan of tank combat, or even have a passing interest in military history, give this one a shot. Hell, this game might even make you interested in the history of tank combat. Here's my final rating. Having an interest in military or tank combat certainly helps here. The level of detail and tidbits of history will be fascinating to those who really enjoy this type of stuff. If you like arena-style combat, you should enjoy this as well, even if it's not a typical shooter. Since it relies more on strategy and teamwork, if you're looking for a shooter that requires thought over a quick trigger finger, you'll enjoy this greatly. This is also a fantastic title for casual gamers, as it's easy to jump in and out of the game without feeling left in the dust by those who progressed further than you. Buying gold is best if you want to climb up the tier ladder quicker. The benefits from a premium account, or merely converting credits or XP, can take a lot of time away from the grind of getting enough XP and cash for the next upgrade through matches alone. Also, for cosmetic purposes, the camo patterns can look pretty nice, and aren't a bad-looking addition to your favorite tank. Even a small amount of gold goes pretty far in this game, as long as you know how to use it properly. As I stated before, if you go into this thinking you're playing a fast-paced military shooter, you are going to be sorely disappointed. Success relies more on patience, so if you think you can single-handedly save the day with your skills, no, it's probably not going to happen. You need to rely on your team, and if you're not the type of person who can, you're not going to enjoy this. Later tier tanks take a good while to upgrade, even with the advantages of gold, so expect a bit of match grinding if you want to keep progressing. Again, this is not a typical shooter, and when you're destroyed, that's it until the next match. So if you find yourself annoyed by things like slow respawns and lack of regenerating health in other games, this is not your game. Okay, I am going in a completely different direction for this next episode. I'm going to be looking at something that's just a little bit too much like a game I've looked at before. But this time, I hope it's a serious improvement on that formula. LFM Malinavka. Need DPS and heals. Full-on tanks.
Hey man, do you think we could get a better tank? Our last one lost aggro.
I just drove this thing underwater. I guess that makes it a scuba tank.
Oh man, I heard there are tanks around. We better tread lightly.
Seriously, all these tanks have ranged weapons? Learn to sword and board, noobs!
It's no wonder we get nothing done. This group is full of tanks. We need more DPS.
Yeah, we're done.